You're listening to episode number 9 with Mike Pennekamp, artist and printmaker. Welcome to the Creatives Unite podcast, hosted by Alex Moore, former Hollywood actor and side hustle jeweler, and Wayne Ostrowskis, former professional athlete turned apparel designer and maker. Each episode will bring you inspiring stories and advice from creative business owners and side hustlers from all over the globe. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, this is Wayne Ostrowskis, and I'm here with my buddy Alex Moore, and we are the Creatives Unite podcast. And today we are doing episode 9 with our good friend Mike Pennekamp. And Mike has pink hair going, so we wanted to make sure we got this video in and this conversation recorded before his roots grow out too far.
Yeah, a little bit.
Looks amazing, Mike. Hey man, appreciate you getting with us today. Thanks for taking time to talk.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Mike, I'll speak for Mike a little bit. You know, Mike and I worked at Starbucks together. Mike's a coffee lover and advocate. He just took a drink of something. I'm guessing it was a black coffee. I don't know. What are you having today?
It is absolutely 100% black coffee.
Yep. Are you still running your stash from your Starbucks days? I doubt you are, but it's been probably some years. But
No, completed that forever ago, but I had a huge surplus when I left.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great thing. So when you work at Starbucks, one of their currencies that they give you is every week you get a bag of coffee or maybe a box of tea. And man, I worked there for about 7 months. So I had, 7 months in weeks, surplus, 30 something bags probably. And it took a while to get through it, especially if you're not just going at it, but it was nice to have. And
That's
Mike.
That's like when I worked at Red Bull, they did the same thing. You got a case of Red Bull every, was it week or month? Can't remember what it was, but I'd get like my daily supply, like when I worked, and I just had these stocked up in the corner of my apartment. I had just like cases of Red Bull that were stocked up and just used them for like parties and stuff. And that's when I was teaching too. So we got to rent the school buses for really cheap for like, going out to the, out to the bars and stuff. And what I would do is I'd fill up like a massive jug, like a water jug, you take like your baseball game, Wayne, like for the team one, and like fill it with a couple bottles of Jaeger, and then like a case of Red Bull just all dumped in, had just have a massive Jaeger bomb. You just walked around and like giving people squirts out of the off the jug.
That sounds like such a great time. Like, it hurts to think about that now.
It makes me feel nauseous actually. Like, and yeah, I agree. Like just this even talking about, I was like, yeah, that doesn't sound nearly as good as it did back in the day anymore. Sure. It's like, yep, you're right. The young days is over.
I have a question about Red Bull though. How much Red Bull's in a case? Like here, we can buy them in like a 4-pack. That's the only time I've ever seen them.
Oh, yep. So it's a 24 case, and it's basically like the cases they deliver to bars and things like that, and restaurants. Like the more wholesale cases. And basically they're kind of like, if you go to like I don't know, Walmart or something, and you get like a case of soda, a 24 pack of soda. There used to be, and it used to be like in the cardboard kind of flat box, and they'd be like kind of cellar wrapped around the top of it. Now I think you just get them in like the cubes and stuff, don't you? But yeah, that's how they came. So yeah, good old days, driving the big can around and handing out free Red Bull. Easiest job ever.
Sure.
And did you guys work at the same Starbucks? And was that in Edwardsville?
Yeah, no, it was in Collinsville.
Oh, Collinsville. All right.
Collinsville, Illinois, man. What a weird store that was.
Yeah.
I worked at Starbucks for about 9 years. And so I worked at several locations, and Collinsville had a pretty incredible staff in a lot of ways. A memorable staff. I mean, not what this podcast is meant to.
No, it's okay. So the one thing, that's where Mike and I loved working with Mike. We would just I mean, I made it a point all the time to crack jokes just nonstop, to just, I don't know, if it wasn't necessarily to take your mind off of work, but it was just to have a good time. And with those microphones, that's I would do whatever I could to make people laugh. And you got the microphone, man, and you're just you're just nonstop talking nonsense. And it was such a fun, that was the best part of it, right? Like
I actually really loved that job. You know, I've found that like I do like where I'm at right now. I really appreciate, you know, what I've got going on. But like at that time was when I was also pursuing like art, you know, I mean, which I have continued with, but like it was really great having this job that I didn't realize at the time, but I was just kind of turning the creative side of my brain off. And so I'd go in, you know, usually at like 5 in the morning or something, you know, and doing this job. And, you know, usually it felt good, you know, like just the people that I worked with were either funny or charming or just weird enough for me to kind of like pretend I was in an episode of The Office, you know? And then I would get off work and I'd have like the creative energy, you know, and enough caffeine to like roll through the rest of my day and actually still be productive. Yeah, and that's one of those things that's really hard to have or to find, is like, especially when somebody's first starting out, any sort of like side hustle or creative project, to still have a base, you know, way that you can support yourself that not only allows you to like keep a roof over your head and food in your stomach, but gives you the energy, or like allows you to have that bandwidth to, you know, to focus on that project. Yes, I mean, I actually really, really enjoyed my time at Starbucks. And it's like a cliche for an art student to work at Starbucks or whatever coffee shop, but I really did enjoy it.
That's awesome. So what so you, like say that's Collinsville's where Wayne and I grew up. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Granite City, Illinois.
Oh, okay. Yep. Not far.
Yeah, no, just a hop, skip, and a jump away.
we so like Mike said, we would start at sometimes it was 4:30 in the morning. It just depended. That was like an open shift. There's different shifts. And Mike had this little, what was it, like it was a Vibe, your car?
No, it was a Honda Fit.
Fit, yes.
Yeah.
So a Fit's like a pretty compact car. And Mike's a taller guy. And I'd show up at like 4:30 in the morning and the Fit would be sitting there, and Mike would have like gotten up in the middle of the night and went and slept in his car before his shift. You did that a couple times, I remember. Am I wrong?
Oh no, you're absolutely right. I remember vividly a couple times you'd like bang on the window to wake me up, and I would open up the door and then the car alarm would go off. And that's how we kind of started the day. But,
and Mike's hair was about the same length as it is there, and it would just be just all over the place, but like perfectly misplaced. Just yeah, he would just let it go, man. It was really funny.
Is that so you wouldn't like miss your alarm and stuff? You just go there and
basically, I mean, like I had absolutely, you know, overslept plenty of times when I first started that job, and eventually I was kind of like, I would do something that like I'd sleep in my uniform. Like, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
when they had that dress code, you know, so I'd have to wear like khaki pants and like a polo shirt, and I would just go to bed in that. So I'd be so uncomfortable that I wouldn't like oversleep. I would just have to get up. You know, it was really kind of, I guess maybe it was torture. Maybe I was torturing myself a little bit.
So talk about torture. So what about the brewed coffee smell that you leave the store with?
Dude, it stunk. I mean, you would or like burnt milk. You just, or God forbid you spill like a, you know, like a big pitcher of steamed milk on you. Oh, it was awful. I don't miss that.
No, that's it. That'll take you back when you go in there. And I tell you, I always give $1 when I go to any coffee shop. You probably do too, man. Always give $1. Tip your barista. I need to make a T-shirt that says that.
That'd be a good one, Wayne.
Yeah, I've thought about that for a while. But yeah, man. And Mike, you were always a really responsible worker too. always great to work with. You had a really good work ethic, and I'm sure you carry that to your art today. Because funny thing about doing, and I know you do, and we'll dive into that, right? But you do different form of prints, and we want to talk about that. But like your stuff's real tedious, you know, your carving and whatnot. It takes a while, and so Metaluna Press is your business, and so is it a side hustle, or is it your full-time deal now? Or tell us about where you are with that today, and like to hear about how you kind of started with that.
Sure. Metaluna Press it's in a weird stasis. It's definitely not my full-time thing right now. I hope to one day kind of potentially, I've been thinking about opening or trying to eventually at some point, not here in Chicago where I live right now, real estate's way too expensive, but opening some sort of a brick and mortar type of print shop that not only, sells like printed matter, of the fine art variety, but like, zines and t-shirts and stuff, but also like has the equipment to produce, those items, and like basically create a place where, people can come and take classes and like learn the basics of these, art forms. But also, maybe come in like in after hours and you have like, maybe there's some sort of a membership where people can come in and work independently after some time, it's kind of this up in the air thing. But one of the weird things about printmakers in print is that, there's this fine art aspect to it, but it's also a trade and it's a craft, and it's something that other visual artists, lots of them don't know exactly how to translate work. Wait, scratch that. I'm missing a big part of this, right? So the idea of printmaking is the idea of like multiplicity and the multiple, right? So a painter can make one painting, but a printmaker can make, essentially, or in theory, like an infinite amount of prints. Similar to like t-shirts, right? It's screen printing is a form of printmaking. But there's a collaborative aspect that's inherent in the medium of printmaking. And there are lots of visual artists that are interested in engaging with that without taking all of the time and energy to learn the process. And so not only are printmakers more times than not like visual artists themselves, but they also kind of take on the role of printer. So then you have, like an artist coming in that works with a printer to be like, hey, I'm this artist. I have this idea for an image or a poster or like a fine art print or something. But I want to make a bunch of them that aren't like oil paintings, right? I want to make a bunch of screen prints, or I'm going to make an edition of whatever. And they can come to me and I will work with them and we will, produce a collection of work like together. So it's, I think it's a really great art form because not only does it allow self-expression, but it opens up the world of collaboration. I don't know exactly how to end that thought.
That's a great thought. No, so I'll piggyback off that. So I agree with you. When I talk about making t-shirts or like, screen printing, right? Doing t-shirts, I always explain it that it's like you're almost getting good at multiple pieces of the process. So, or you're creating multiple pieces of art within the where before it gets to the actual t-shirt print. It's like you make the image, but then you have to transfer that image to a physical form, which is putting it into a screen. And I think, the transferring it into a screen is its process, an art form in its own. Because for instance, like I'll make an image and when I transfer it, it doesn't always turn out exactly like I intended in the sense that, if you don't get all of the emulsion off of the screen, it's going to have little imperfections and things like that. And I always embrace that as just like, you know what, I'm going to make it as perfect as I can, but I also know that this process, it has its imperfections and I just roll with it. Right. I mean, obviously you want it to translate correctly, but that's just something that I've observed. And I know I'm looking at some of the prints I've got from you, man, and they're laser precise, and you did it all through your print process,
Hold
and
it up, Wayne.
yeah, here. So
I remember you. Yeah, it was a couple. It was like in I think in the one where we interviewed you, Wayne. Oh, that's a different
Yeah.
one. That's cool. Yeah, you held up the Wolfman one. I was just like, man, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That one's
yeah.
really cool too. That's awesome. Yeah.
Three Dog Knife. What did you do here on this print, Mike? To where, like, how did you get that? What did you do to make this one here?
That is a combination of woodcut and screen print. And another process. It's just basically a collage, right? So the actual image of the dogs and that blade, that was carved into wood, and then through a printing process, like ink was applied to the wood and then transferred onto the paper. Essentially, I made a stamp. It's easy to understand it.
Yep.
And then I wanted the paper to have this like kind of minty blue, like a cross between mint and robin's egg, right? But they don't make that paper. That doesn't exist anywhere. So that's a screen printed flat, right? So I just had to I took a big sheet of paper and then burned a big rectangle and then just screen printed this color,
Yep.
And so then I have two pieces. I have one that's like just a rectangle of this mint robin's egg, and then it's this gray and black, dog thing. And then I would use like an archival or an acid-free adhesive. It's like not a glue stick, but it's like this kind of it's used in bookbinding a lot. And I use that to kind of essentially turn that woodcut into a sticker. I mean, I feel like if there are, fine art printmakers that would listen to this, they would like be wringing their hands and wanting to, strangle me for these terms. But like, I made this, I turned the stamp into a sticker, and then I put the sticker on the paper.
It looks like, I see that you're saying it. I can see where it looks like a sticker. It's got a little bit of a 3D effect to it.
It's kind of a bit of a, it's like, when these things are run through a printing press, right, the papers are kind of smashed together, but there is this really slight line that can kind of show up. It's kind of like the sticker is not only adhered to the surface, but also kind of debossed or pressed into the fibers of the paper.
Cool.
But it makes it pop though.
Yeah, just gonna hold it up, Wayne, real quick. I'll just describe it, because if we forget, sometimes people are listening and not watching. But it's like the whole thing is like a minty. Did you describe it like a mint blue kind of?
Robin's egg.
Yeah, like a cross between a robin's egg blue and then mint. Like I don't know what color that would be. Maybe a seafoam.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, no, it's a cool color, but it's got like 3 Dobermans. Are those Dobermans? Yep. And then with like a salt knife, like a rainbow knife coming off the side of them. It's about the same size as they are. So yeah, no, that is cool. And I remember from just looking at your Instagram, Mike, and I've seen a few, like I follow a few different printmakers, and there's one here that does, basically they make stamps for businesses. And I was always so impressed with, how much the stamps actually look like, an actual like kind of machine made stamp for a logo. And then I saw your stuff and I was just blown away by the intricacies of it all. And like the one that Wayne just showed too, yeah, it just is awesome. So yeah, no, really cool stuff.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, it's all good.
Yeah, and Mike, like what you described, like we talked, is it's a multi-step process. There's different art forms within it. Like you said, you can be an artist, but then an artist can't just take that image and put it into that physical form like you just described. There's a lot to learn and know about that. And one thing, when we were at Starbucks together, I know I think you were in between and you were figuring out what your next steps were. And I think you wanted to get your master's in art. And so you did pursue that. I know you did some student teaching in the process as well. So like you were just talking earlier about describing being able to have school, if you will, or classes for folks that are wanting to learn more about that. I don't know. I mean, tell us about that journey a little bit, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I discovered printmaking when I was in college, when I was getting a bachelor's degree. And I was always I mean, it sounds really cliche to say, but like I was always the, the creative kid, right? I was always the one, in the group that would be like drawing or doodling or just doing whatever, right? Kind of a space case, kind of a pain in the ass for a lot of people. But, so like I also grew up in Granite City, Illinois, which is a steel town, like a blue collar steel mill town. It smells like rotten eggs all the time. But I still love it to death. My parents still live there. But like, I think that growing up in a community, in an area like Granite City, where 90% of the town worked at these steel mills, and you get up in the morning and you go to work, and like, when I was 18, I was working as a dog catcher, like, which is
You look like a dog catcher right now, dude. You look like you could be in a movie right now as a dog catcher. Just hop out and like,
my red cap, kind of uniform and a big, net or whatever. Like, I worked some of the weirdest jobs. I was a dump truck driver. I was a dog catcher. Like, and then I ended up working at Starbucks with you. But like, the whole point is that, I knew that, or it was assumed that the road to success was to, you go to high school and then you go to college and you get your college degree, right? Like, so that's just what I did. I went to a university that was really close in, Southern Illinois. And I went for art, right? Like, it was just kind of this logical progression. I had no idea what I would want to do with that, but it was just the idea of a degree was seen as really valuable. So I just stumbled into printmaking by accident, fell in love with it, pursued that for, the last couple of years. And that ended up being my like major, my area of concentration, which doesn't open any job prospects, except for like afterwards when I graduated, I started, not only was I working at Starbucks, but I started interning at a couple different like fine art print shops in St. Louis. I was interning at 2 at one time. And I ended up leaving one and stuck with the other. And I was there for 5 years after my undergrad while still working at Starbucks. And like, I just learned during that internship, I learned a lot about the business side of the art world. I learned about, like, not only did I learn more about all these art processes, all of the printmaking processes, I just found a deeper understanding, and I realized how hard it was to, create not only a name for yourself, but like to actually pay bills with the creative process. And even though I loved that print shop where I worked, it's called Evil Prints, by the way.
Yep. Tom Huck, right?
Yeah, Tom Huck,
Yeah.
who is a world renowned. I mean, like, this was the thing, is I was working there, working with this guy who, has his artwork in museums across the world, across the globe. One of the biggest names in this medium. And there were some days where I would go to the shop with a to-do list, and the power wouldn't be on. Like, our power would be turned off because we weren't able to pay the bill on time. And so then I would spend like an entire Saturday going to, some check cashing place or whatever, and getting like money wired to whatever, wherever that needed to go, so that we can turn the lights on, so that we can make this stuff, so that the stuff could go in a museum somewhere. I almost cursed. I'm sorry. I don't want to
do it. Just cuss.
You're fine.
Just do it.
You're fine.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we're working with that explicit tag or not, but like, I am producing work for this artist that's going into a fucking museum or selling for thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars in some cases. And I can't even get the fucking power to turn on, because it is that hard of a business. Anyway, it's just something it has been ingrained in my head that this shit isn't easy. But I wanted to get a master's degree, not because I thought it was going to make me more marketable necessarily, but like, I'm kind of a completist. I kind of wanted to like pursue this thing until I couldn't anymore. The MFA is a terminal degree. And I figured if I'm going to pursue this, the academic art route, then I should just go the whole way, as far as I can. I think that, and I do think that taught me a lot. But I also made a lot of sacrifices in that way. I didn't take out student loans. I went to the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, and they have an amazing art program that ended up paying me a monthly stipend, and I got a full tuition waiver. And essentially for 3 years, I kind of pursued my own creative practice. And I lived poor, but I was able to live off of the money that I got from that university, and I graduated with no debt. And it's one of those things that school, especially art school, doesn't address the real world, and I think a lot of people feel betrayed by that, and I think that they're right, they're not wrong to feel that way. But I think I got a leg up in realizing that it's not as easy as an art professor tells you, because I was in that world for a while,
Yeah, dude.
So I graduated with an MFA, which is essentially a glorified teaching degree, right? So I just learned more about these processes and, built a body of work to show people. And then I moved up to Chicago and started working at a couple different print shops, more as the technician, again, that blue collar mentality, right? I consider myself an educator, but I don't consider myself a professor, So I've been, teaching classes up here, teaching workshops. At least I was before COVID hit. And I was working at a job where I was, actually fixing and repairing big tools, big materials. It was more of more of an industrial type job. But it was at, an art or a print studio, at an art studio, it was, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have the MFA degree, or at least that time in my MFA program, to learn more about these machines and how they operate, and the real world experience of that internship,
Yeah, you said a lot of really great things and interesting things. A couple of them, supporting artists is a big deal. We all love art.
Yeah.
But then we don't think about, like you said, the struggle of, what it takes to put that and produce good work that people actually care about, and maybe it touches them or makes them happy. That's why I bought a couple prints from you, is that I got one for my neighbor and their family for Christmas, because I know that they have a couple dogs. He was in the military. He's a great dude. I love the guy. And I was like, oh, what would be a cool thing that isn't just from Costco or something, or whatever, something that is unique and is going to resonate for them. And they love dogs, man. So that's why I got that piece that we were just talking about. And then I love that you pursued what you love and are passionate about, because I think that is so important. And it makes me think a lot about my baseball career. Same thing. I played 4 years. I could have kept playing baseball, but I made no money. And I was just kind of tired of that. I fell out of love with that, or with the game, because you put everything into it and it really doesn't give anything back to you in monetarily. Now, the lessons you learn though are infinite and everlasting. I would not be where I'm at in my everyday profession, or even making product, Mystic Fern type things, or doing this with Alex, if it wasn't for what I did with the baseball. You learn a lot of valuable lessons in the struggle.
I think it's funny you say that, Wayne, because I was kind of the opposite of you guys, where with when I was acting, I wasn't prepared to throw it all in, to be doing it full time and to not have any money at all, because the jobs kind of are very sporadic that you get. So I was teaching full time, but then I'd do the acting as much as I could on the side, and trying to kind of work in auditions and filming to teaching, and taking sick days to do things. And yeah, so yeah, it's funny how you're the opposite of me there. But yeah, I think also, Mike, too, is awesome when you say, it kind of reminds me of when, I don't want to be political, but you hear the talk of wanting to get rid of student, or like the wipe student debt and stuff, and you hear the people who are against it saying, "Oh, we shouldn't have got a useless fine arts degree or a liberal arts degree, and that doesn't make any money." But you kind of blew that out of the water by working hard, and like you said, being poor during those years, and going through it without any student debt. So it's a pretty cool thing. So yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it definitely has put me in a place where, I don't know. I think that I've always been really stingy, right? I've always been averse to financial risk, and I think that has done a lot to like help me a little bit, but also kind of hurt me in some ways, because entrepreneurship is about taking risks and kind of like betting on yourself, but to not have that weight of like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt really does kind of make me feel like I feel pretty great. If I, like even if I'm on my worst day, I can kind of think like, well, at least, the $50 I have in my bank account is my $50,
Yeah. Yep.
But it's weird. And I feel really, I really do feel hard for people that have been hit with all of that debt, because, I think that a lot of students are sold a bill of goods that just it's not reasonable. It's not there. But, if you look at professors and, respected institutions as the authority, and a lot of people do, then you just get swindled. And, I don't know exactly who's to blame for that. I don't know if the institutions and universities are, evil or, malevolent in that way. I don't think that's the case. But I do think we've culturally, I guess, we've gotten into this feedback loop of, paying enough money to get this accreditation or get this title will allow you to earn more money. Like that's how we think this works, but it just doesn't. And, ask anybody who's trying to teach at a university, who gets hired on as an adjunct, right? Where your contracts are semester to semester and you get paid maybe cumulatively like $3,000 for one class for an entire semester. How do you make that work without, pulling more, like trying to get more and more of those jobs so that you can make, maybe you're teaching 3 jobs and you make $9,000, but it's still for one semester and there's no security that you're going to be able to, renew those contracts next semester, or it gets a little esoteric and a little like inside baseball. But I don't know, man. The whole system's rigged.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rigged. No,
Yeah. I
so,
agree.
but
Oh, sorry, Wayne, go ahead.
no, I mean, you can finish your thought. Go ahead, man.
I was just saying, I agree 100%. Like most, I mean, I think 99% of the people that go to university go when they're out of high school, either a year or so, or right straight after, and they're 18 years old. And you're like you said, you're taught that if you don't go and get a degree, you're not going to get a good job. And, you can get a student loan and you just pay it back later, and then it just builds up and builds up. And you're 18, you don't know any better. You don't think about these things, having to pay it back when you're trying to pay rent and mortgages and, all this other stuff. All you're worrying about is, going to class and paying the bill, and then worry about it when you get your degree, and in hopes that you get a high paying job to pay it back. And that, like we know, it's not always the case. But I definitely, and the same as like, when they have credit card people on campus roaming around saying, "Oh, here, sign up for a credit card, you get a free t-shirt or some shit," and then you're in credit card debt for years and years. And yeah, it's just yeah, definitely I think it was my mom actually told me, or somebody told me. It's like, it's the worst thing is, for a kid at 18 is to be able to be made to choose, sorry, like what you want to do for the rest of your life, and be in that predicament to having to pay all that money to do that. So yeah, like you said, the whole system's just rigged, man.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like, yeah, predatory loans. I mean, it's all criminal. It shouldn't exist. I wish it didn't. But it's a reality that we've got to kind of wrestle with. As people. And also, I also want to make sure that I just to make sure this doesn't go unsaid, is that I don't think that I've worked harder than anybody else. I think that the way this deck was shuffled, I managed to get a hand that has, kind of helped lead me in this path of, frugality, I guess. And so that I'm able to reach this point where I don't have loans that are holding me down. But I don't think that I'm any better or any more of a hard worker or any smarter than somebody that is crippled with debt. That's just the reality.
Yep.
Well, let me add to that. So a couple of things that I was thinking. And so I think what we can take away though is that there's more than one way to do it. And maybe we could just talk about that on like, so I think of a few things. So yeah, the system is set up to where you need to go to college and then you got to get a degree to get a job that is supposedly going to pay you well. And we all know that when you start out, they usually don't, unless you're in certain fields, certain industries, do better than others. So that's something to consider, right? But then if you love something early on and you know how to do it, there's ways of not going to school and doing that on the side while you live in your parents' house in their basement, and you can build up things. And over 10 years time, it probably is going to come to fruition if you keep staying at it and keep your focus at it. There's more than one way to do it entrepreneurially. And Mike, like you're doing, yours is very specific. So you probably did need to go to school to learn about some printmaking stuff, right? And it was part of your journey on how you got from A to B. For sure. Yeah. But so with that though, like for me, I had scholarships. I had no debt when I, going through school, and I've talked about it before, but like I had few scholarship offers, my first, like getting out of out of high school into college. I had one to a junior college. So I went to a junior college, which I was going to say junior college is a great route. Go to junior college. It's less expensive and, more affordable. And you can then see where life takes you from there. There's a lot of ways to get scholarships. As Mike talked, he got some scholarships and some grants and whatnot. There's a lot of things you can apply for to help. But yeah, like you said, it's just about focusing on not having the debt. It's, in other words, like focus on ways and figure out how to go to school if that's what you want to do without having to pay an arm and a leg. And there's ways to do it. I mean, for my example, it was through sports, plain and simple. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do when I got into college. I did my gen ed, and I think doing business is a great way to go. A great major, because I think business applies to everything. It would help all of us to have business degrees.
Yeah, man. Like I'm
you
sorry.
Don't know. No, you're good. If you don't know what you want to do, go ahead. I think business is a good degree.
No, I think you're right. And I mean, there are a lot of, it feels weird to kind of lambast the educational system a little bit, because I wouldn't be where I am. Like I am a product of it, but there are so many things that I wasn't taught, in art school, like to be an artist, like what does that mean? I think there's a really antiquated notion of, somebody like with a beret and like a scarf that has a big empty studio, and it's just like vibing on splashing paint around or whatever kind of bullshit that is. And I think a lot of people do still see that as, what an artist is. And not only does that hurt people that are pursuing art, because they're, kind of working under that umbrella, but it also hurts when you get out, because that's how the population at large, views artists, right? And somebody that is in the arts, it's seen as a meaningless degree. It's seen as worthless, right? But how much media have we consumed? What art has saved us from chewing on drywall and defecating in corners during this quarantine, like if it wasn't for television shows and music and entertainment at large, which is all art practice, that we
Yeah,
culture,
no,
that's how culture grows, is through the arts. So I don't think pursuing it is a worthless endeavor, and I resent that it's kind of seen like it's viewed like that
yeah,
popularly.
yeah. There's no empathy.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, when it comes to like having a business degree or something, like I was never shown how to like file taxes as an artist. What is deductible, what is not. I still don't know. I need to buy a book and like read about this stuff. There's no reason that I there's no good reason to have not done that by now. But like I am behind the curve when it comes to business.
Yeah, we appreciate it, man. Mike, talk to us about demystifying art.
Well, so like, as somebody that is a visual artist, right? Like there's, the two of you are creators, right? And you have products that you make and you sell and that people can use, right? But the world that I'm in is more of an aesthetic sort of thing. Like I still have the capabilities to print t-shirts, and I do on occasion, but essentially what I make is two-dimensional visual art. And that's harder to market to people in a lot of ways, and forgive me, I don't know the business lingo, right? But there's that hurdle where like I have this thing and I want to get it to people, but how do I, like there are so many blocks that people have to like to understanding what it is that I do, right? And so I've actually found that using Instagram has been kind of a big help, because I post like the content that I'm producing more times than not is the process that I'm going through, right? It's either, drawing on a piece of wood or the carving process or printing, sometimes there's videos of that, right? And it does illuminate, it illuminates further what's going into these pieces. So you understand it a little bit more, but I'm also like
the effort.
I'm and some of this is kind of like I don't mean to navel gaze necessarily, because this is still stuff that I'm attempting to implement and put into practice, but like one of the things about art is that sometimes people want to know the artist, right? And they see a piece of artwork as a connection to an artist, right? So like instead of an account of just a mystery person that's just posting, here's my finished product, here's this finished thing, like here are all these pictures. I think that people are more apt to, support an artist if they understand who that artist is and what that artist is doing, and so basically through social media, which is kind of a love-hate. I mean, I think everyone has a love-hate relationship with it.
Yeah,
but like I'm attempting to kind of I'm trying to make what I do a little more accessible. And then so there's one, that's one wall that I'm trying to like get over. But then there's the other of like collecting art, right? And I mentioned earlier the idea of an artist with a smoking a cigarette with a scarf and a beret, and like this being the popular idea of what an artist is. But the popular idea of an art collector is somebody that has more money than they know what to do with, and somebody who is just, I've used this term before, but like some tweed suited like fart sniffing sort of like asshole, right? Like somebody that is just pompous and kind of a dick, and nobody wants to be that, right? So what I have done, luckily, and I've been in the printmaking world for like 10, 12 years at this point, and I've met a lot of people, and I've bought artwork from people and like kind of been given artwork from others and traded with other people. And so what I've been doing is I work with Speedball Arts, the Speedball art supplier. They make they make tons of stuff, but like print related, and Wayne, I'm sure you know this too, like they make screen printing ink and all sorts of stuff. But
they're a big company, right? Big
yeah,
outfit?
they've got a small footprint, I think, but they're a big company. Like I have been able to work with them for a little over a year now. They flew me out to, there you go. Yeah.
There we go.
The
Sorry about that.
flew me out to their headquarters in the factory in
Where's it at?
I think it's Asheville, North Carolina.
Sick.
You know, and I've been working with them, especially during quarantine, like doing online, you know, demos and workshops and stuff like that. But I've also been using their social media presence to kind of normalize, I think that term gets overused, but I'm like normalizing the idea of collecting artwork, right? And it's, so like every Friday, I make a post on the Speedball Art Instagram account that shows a print that I have procured. It's like part of my collection, not my work, but it's work from other artists that I have, that I value. And I, you know, do a little write-up on this artist and why I like this particular print so much, or a little, you know, a little bit of a history behind it. Not only do I think that covers like an educational basis, you know, it also works on exposing another artist. And it also shows that, like, I mean, my art collection is kind of weird, but it's all shit that I like, you know? And I think that more than anything, what I'm doing is trying to encourage people to just enjoy things. And like, I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but you know, I have no interest in a picture of the Eiffel Tower from Target, right? Like, you know, getting like, you know, having a canvas that's been digitally printed with, you know, the Eiffel Tower, or, you know, the Leaning Tower of Pisa or whatever, right? Like, but that's what people, when they're like, hey, I have this living room and I need to put up a piece of art, that's what they go to, you know, and with minimal effort and for usually the same amount of money, sometimes less, like you can find something that may speak to you, whatever that is. If it's my stuff, awesome, I'm stoked. If it's not my stuff, I mean, cool, you know, support somebody else and support that kind of, that one artist that's creating something that you enjoy and that you love. And I don't know, I'm like just attempting to be a mouthpiece that just says like, it's okay, you know, like if you have a blank wall and like, it's cool to like put up a poster of like a zombie with like blood dripping out of its eyes or some shit. Like, it's weird, but you can do that and you're fine with it. You're still an adult. You're still responsible. You know, you're paying your bills, you're doing your thing. But if it brings you joy, it doesn't matter if anybody else thinks it's fucking weird. Maybe that's kind of hippy dippy in a weird way.
No, it's not. It's breaking the mold of, or breaking the thought process of like what's in front of you. Like, so you go to the store, all these major stores, you could pick, I could name any of them, and you got art there and people are like, oh, I'm trying to get a pillow, but oh, look at this picture, you know. But instead you could shift gears and get, you know, like you said, something from an independent person that makes cool stuff that probably costs the same amount of money. You know, like your stuff, Mike, I had to buy a frame, you know, got that online. It was cheap. It was like $10 frame and boom, boom, I'm done. But stuff's framed for people. Stuff's microwaved for people to just, it's boom. They just grab it and go instead of seeking out any sort of art.
Yeah. It's kind of like people are presented with what they should be enjoying. It's like, here's this thing. This is what art is, right? Or this is what's supposed to go on a wall. And I'm unwilling to accept that because I think for the most part it's boring, and it just doesn't reflect who I am. And I don't know anybody. I don't know anyone who is reflected in those things. Like if I walk through a Target and I go through the home decor section, I cannot think of a single person in my life where I'm like, oh, that's them. You know, like this would be right at home over the couch of, you know, so and so, right? Like I don't know who it speaks to. And everybody has a social media account. It doesn't take that much effort to
seek it out.
Yeah, to seek it out. I mean,
hashtags. Look for really hashtags.
Much. Yeah, like
yeah.
But I do think that when it comes to buying art, some people are intimidated because they think like, if I'm going to buy artwork, I need to buy the right stuff. I need to buy, you know, something that's really well made and it's coming from the right person who has a good reputation. All these things that I mean, eventually at some point, if you want to consider those things, go for it. But that shouldn't be that, like, it, those are shackles that you kind of need to break free of.
Let me give you an example. Like, so I look at art the same way I look at tennis shoes. So, you know, I'm into tennis shoes. I've got a lot of sneakers. I buy them strategically. I say I don't buy much in life, very minimal as far, you know, I make my own clothes a lot of times. Everything I'm wearing actually made, other than the hat and the shoes and socks, but and undergarments. But
Underwear.
yeah, so like,
Man,
yeah, I just said that.
uh,
So tennis shoes though, I look at people wearing tennis shoes and I realize that not everybody cares about their tennis shoes, but I feel like whatever you wear should reflect who you are. And you should put a little extra thought into that and seek out those things, is where I'm trying to say. And so I look at every pair of shoes I get are like what you just described in artwork, that your house, you look around and it's those unique pieces that represent you, or that you like that image. It makes you feel good in some way, shape, or form. And so I look at generic shoes that are just at any, you know, like you could get them anywhere. And I realize not everybody can afford certain shoes. I get that. That's not my point. It's just that if you're going to spend the money, be thoughtful about what you're getting.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, man.
it's I think it's awesome. I didn't realize that. Yeah, you worked with Speedball, and like you said, yeah, I was holding it up before because that Wayne, I told you about it was a while ago. I bought a Speedball. It was like a screen printing kit, and that's who it's done by. Here's like the instruction is just sitting by me, actually, the booklet, instruction booklet for Speedball. So yeah, they're in Statesville, North Carolina. The address on the back I saw. But yeah, shout out to Speedball. But yeah, no, I've been following them actually on Instagram for a few months now, and just seeing, because like I said before, I'm quite into like the printmaking and the lino cut prints and stuff, and just the whole process is quite amazing. And when people have the videos of them cutting like the rubber, it's quite soothing to watch, as well as just like the
For
constant
sure.
little. So I'd like to
It
get
feels
into
good to
that.
do it too.
Yeah, it's outside. I'd like to try it one day. And my friend of mine who's a goldsmith here, and he's an artist, and he does a lot of prints like that as well, lino prints, and so he's got the gear. So he said, "Oh, anytime I want to borrow it, just let me know." So yeah, no, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. But I think I was thinking about your name, Mike, for your business name, Metaluna Press. So where does that come from?
It's well, who's to say where
yeah.
anything really come from necessarily? So there are a number of reasons that I chose the name Metaluna, but the kind of the deep cut is that Metaluna is the name of a planet in a movie called This Island Earth, which is an old sci-fi kind of like B movie. I think it was a Universal monster, sort of like the Universal Pictures sort of thing, but it's one of the more forgotten monsters. So you have, Dracula and Frankenstein and the Gill Man, which is the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yep.
All those, right, that are iconic. The Wolf Man. But you also have the Metaluna mutant, which is this. It's such a weird character because it's got like lobster claw hands and a big brain with big eyeballs, and then like it's in the movie it's wearing like pants, like it's just got a pair of like a belt and pants on. But I mean, there's just so many things I love about that movie. But the name of the planet that this alien race was like, basically the planet was dying and the aliens were coming to Earth to kind of like get scientists to help them fix their planet, and the planet was named Metaluna.
We could use some of that.
Yeah,
maybe,
exactly.
on the flip side.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that I'm really in love with are kind of old B movies, classic sci-fi, classic horror, bad movies sometimes. Just like, they're just a bunch of bad movies that I love for some reason. But I thought Metaluna was a really beautiful name. And I mean, it's also this kind of, before I pursued art, like where I decided as a child, not only was I interested in art, but I was also really interested in astronomy. And like, as a child, I wanted to be an astronaut. But I think I wanted that usually kids grow out of that, and I didn't until a lot later in life. You know, it kind of was like 10 years old, like, or 12 years old, being like, man, it would be fucking awesome to be an astronaut. And that I mean, it's always been something in my head, like this love affair with hard science, and space and exploration. And so we call it the moon, but the proper name for the moon is Luna. And so Metaluna, just kind of this beyond the moon, or in addition to the moon, or of the moon. It also just kind of related. And so I just took the name. I was like, this is mine now. I want it.
Cool.
And
yeah, we should plug that real quick, Alex, too, because we didn't do that in the beginning and maybe whenever we run the video to start, we plugged Mike Face Killa.
Oh yeah, Mike Face Killa.
Okay.
We had
Mike Face Killa
like
is one of them.
What sucks about the Instagram thing is, like, Metaluna Press as it exists right now is essentially a big cartel store, right? Like it's where I sell my prints, and it's where I sell like other like t-shirts or whatever when I make them. And it's basically because my last name kind of sucks. Pennekamp is confusing for a lot of people. It's kind of hard to spell. And so Mike Pennekamp is more difficult to navigate to find than like Metaluna Press. I mean, it's also the initials are my initials too, so that's kind of cute.
Oh, that's cool.
Like,
there you go.
The idea of managing 2 Instagram accounts is really
it's
fucking
stupid,
burden.
Yeah.
And so I've concentrated mostly on the Mike Face Killa Instagram account.
Wu-Tang, by the way. Do you like Wu-Tang at all?
I've been known to bring the motherfucking ruckus occasionally.
Yeah, dude. I love Wu-Tang. I was into the Wu-Tang Forever album. That's really where I got mostly introduced. I was just blown away by the Wu-Tang Forever. The dark cover, you can barely see, like, it's just really just and then they bring it. And then not recently, but over time I started going back with having digital music to being able to listen to stuff. Cause I talk about this all the time. I didn't have any money to buy music. And when you did, you didn't even know what to get. And it was $20. You could just get one of them. Now we got $14 a month. You can listen to anything you want. And so I've been just going through all the old music, but I love Wu-Tang. I love the ethos, kind of what you're talking about with Metaluna. That's, they loved, kung fu movies and whatnot, but Ghostface Killer is an actual character on a movie, which I'm sure you know that. But
another one of those like kind of dumb B samurai movies, and like that exploitation. What would it be? It's not blaxploitation, but it's like the world of Chinese karate and kung fu movies that were kind of exploitative in more of a like an Asian,
Yeah, they are Chinese though. Actually, I looked them up earlier. Actually, the movie that Ghostface Killer is in, actually can't think of the name right now, but it was a Chinese film. So it's not. I mean, I think it's. Maybe it's exploitive. Maybe it isn't though. Maybe it's just them putting movies out. But I get what you're saying, man.
Yeah, no, I don't mean that in a.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about like the idea of independent or the like subgenres of movies. Blaxploitation movies aren't necessarily like blaxploitation. If you take that name and look at it, it seems like it's pejorative or negative. But I think that those movies really did open a lot of doors and were incredibly influential and positive in a lot of ways. There are also some negative aspects, but I think that directly relates or is parallel to
kung fu
movies.
That's a good point. No, that's a good point, man. That's fair. That's very, very well said. But yeah, I've even gone back and started watching some of those movies when I see them available. I've been watching, like, they're actually pretty good. My kids, I had one of them on. It was like Return to the 36 Chambers, and my kids are sitting there watching it, like, just in awe by it. They love the action, and then they're talking, and then there's a voiceover going on.
We used to watch those. We used to remember we used to rent all those from the gas station at the end of our street, Wayne Save-On Liquors. They had a movie rental spot, and I think we rented all the old karate movies and kung fu movies and even horror movies too. We went through them all.
Yeah, I remember watching more of the Jean-Claude Van Damme, which is a worse.
Bloodsport.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the faves.
Yeah, those are.
Dip our hands in honey and then glass, and now it's like there's so many things I love about. I mean, a Bloodsport is another one of those movies. It's stupid. It's so dumb, but it's got this weird charm.
The bad guy in that movie is actually from that. It's from the Bruce Lee. There's a Bruce Lee movie where that guy's the antagonist as well, which is kind of interesting. Okay. When I went back and watched the Bruce Lee movie, and it might have been Return of the Dragon, and he's in that same guy. Anyway,
it's Return of the Dragon, the one with it's that iconic fight scene with Bruce Lee and, oh my God, is it Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
Oh no, I don't think so. So that's the issue I'm having though, is like keeping track of all these names of the movies and what they actually. So like I have that with music too. I don't always know the name of songs, but I'll love the whole album. It's just like I don't process it now because I don't have a physical copy in front of me. If that makes sense, right?
You're
not
reading the lyrics from the booklet as they go on.
So. Yeah, like. Yeah, I would always. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like nowadays, where before you would know the name of the album and a lot and the song names. Now I'm like blank on a lot of those things. I just dig.
I mean, I still like, maybe it's kind of a hipstery thing, but I still do purchase vinyl records from bands that release things that I do really enjoy, because Spotify's great. You know, it doesn't really support the artists that are on it like the way I think it should. But it does, you know, allow for exposure, right? I guess. But like, you can go onto Spotify and you can listen to everything. But there is that back when music was more tangible and you had like a CD or a tape or something. There's a I don't know, methodology or like a ritual of, you know, putting a CD and looking through the booklet, and like maybe if it's a cool CD, you can take out the like plastic, the acrylic like CD holster, and there's like a picture on the inside. You know, you can look on the back, you can read the track lists, you can open up the booklet and see who produced what songs or who wrote this and that, you know, and you can look at those lyrics, and like there's all this that's involved in like making an audio format like tangible and physical. And I really do love, even though I think it's overdone, you know, it can be in some respects, but like people putting out records now, you know, with like colored vinyl and, you know, digital download codes, which is great because I'm not fucking carrying a record player around with me, you know.
Yep.
Can't do that. I can't play a record in my car. But you know, you can put on some headphones, you can listen to this, you can still like go through the ritual of putting on a record, which is really therapeutic and cathartic for me in a lot of ways, you know, like kind of taking a little brush, cleaning something around.
It's special. Yeah. It's ritual. It's ritualistic. It's a ritual. Yeah. No, I love it. No, I think it's great. I've got a record collection down here. I've got some Bob Marley. I've got Nirvana. I've got Tyler, the Creator. There's a couple. I want to get more. They cost money, but at the same time, I'm going to build it up. But yeah, man, I feel you.
Yeah. That's another thing. It's like, it does, you know, records are $15-20. You know, sometimes from like a smaller band, you can get 1 for 10, but like, yeah, I mean, it costs, and that adds up after a while, which is why Spotify is so great.
Yep.
But I do try to go out of my way to, you know, put that financial energy and like into other creative endeavors, you know?
Yep. Cool. Alex, do you think we're getting to a wrap up point?
Yeah. Just had a quick question about where you think your art's going to go in the future. I know you said you're doing kind of in-person classes before COVID, Mike. Have you? And I've done a few on video classes on a website called Skillshare, where you kind of record it yourself and put it on there. Do you have anything like that, or anything in the works to?
I don't have anything like that right now. I've thought about Skillshare. That's another sort of like business venture that I have yet to figure out. It's like, there's a part of me that wants to, you know, just make like Instagram videos and kind of have a little library of like, here are these processes, here's some educational stuff, you know, which I'm probably going to end up doing at some point, maybe this year. But it'll be pretty rudimentary, you know, real simplistic and as like introductions. But I I mean, one of those things that I don't want to ever really deal with is the idea of monetizing what it is that I do. You know, like as a human in the world, I'm sure you all know about this. Like you've got to pay bills, right? So I don't know. I've thought about doing like putting on workshops, maybe putting out feelers on different like social media platforms, because I can just do a Zoom, workshop with however many people,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
No,
that's
definitely.
more like
s-
conversational and interactive,
Yeah. No, I was
rather
gonna
than just
say,
recording something I'm
if
doing.
if you would do something like that, yeah, no, I definitely would be interested. So I think
Okay,
I
cool.
think you would have I mean that's like there's one person there. So I think you would
Yeah.
have a great deal, especially like, with your social media presence building up and by your work with through Speedball. And you get people who are interested in that sort of thing. But yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. I'd be really interested in that. But
Yeah.
yeah, just yeah, with the Skillshare, it's like I've just made a couple of videos, and that's really just passive income and it's not that much. I maybe get between 15 and $20 US a month. And I just have a couple classes, and I think some of the bigger ones, some of the bigger names on there that do more graphic design work, like mine's jewelry, so it's probably not that much of an interest compared to like the digital work stuff or more the art and things. Um, but yeah, but I think like I said, some of the top ones, they make close to like six figures from it. And it's just, once the videos are up, it's just like passive income. And
Yeah,
it's,
that's
there you go, Mike.
especially
Get to
now during
work.
the pandemic time when people are at home. Like
yeah.
I've started doing 3D printing jewelry, and our lockdown here was end of last March to April, through April, for like 6 weeks. And I learned basically how to do all my 3D design, and started doing 3D prints of jewelry and stuff now. And yeah, that's what I use my time for. So I'm sure I definitely know there's people out there that are, wanting to upskill and learn new things, and just to take the spare the time, I guess, take the time away to
Sure.
sit
Yeah.
around.
Well, I appreciate the little nudge. Like it sounds encouraging. Yeah, it's weird, man. Lockdown has just hit everybody so hard, and one of the things that I do, or I used to do, was art fairs and like print fairs specifically, because you have, printmaking is like this visual art, but it is kind of niche in a lot of ways, um, and so I would routinely, like my partner Lauren and I would travel, to different cities, like in Austin, Texas, or Houston. It's usually Texas based. There's a big print scene down there, but like, I fill big portfolio, full of stuff, or a box of t-shirts, and we can go and we can interact with an audience, and, like not only grow through social media and like promote things that way, but we can also kind of, turn a profit sometimes
Yep.
selling artwork. And it's that kind of that personal connection with an artist that I mentioned earlier that we were able to really engage in, when we could all meet face to face. And so having this sort of like this barrier of a screen has really just like kind of twisted this knife, because not only do I can't go anywhere anyway. Like if I wanted to just go to a bar or go to the park, it's really difficult to do that. But it's impossible to go to like an art fair, or a print fair.
Yeah.
If I wanted to, I could, buy a 6-pack of like Bush and, drink in an alley. Like I mean, it's kind of like going to a bar and going to a park, just all in one.
But you're not gonna make any money doing that though.
No.
Just get a headache.
I would get good. No, but yeah, it's lockdown and COVID and all this nonsense. It has really just kind of made everything a little bit more difficult for everybody.
Well, keep your spirits up. You're doing good things, and you're, like you said, you're working with Speedball, which is great. I saw they had like 60,000 followers. I mean, stay true, hold fast, stay true.
Sure.
Yeah, keep grinding, man. But I think doing the digital stuff's a good idea. And where it's not maybe ideal, I think it's good to explore, kind of what we were talking about earlier, just like diving into new things. Maybe it'll take you in a direction. You do one video and then you get some feedback. Like Alex and I are doing this podcast and we've had people listening, like, it's growing in numbers, and we're just doing our thing, you know, it's going to be what it is. But at the same time, you get a little momentum, you get a little confidence, and then it gets you excited to do more of them. So
Yeah, man.
yeah, man.
But yeah, and I think it leaves us in a good spot though. But yeah, Mike, we're looking forward to hearing more about your ventures, and yeah, you have an open invitation to come back on the podcast anytime. We'd love to hear from you and again and see how it's going. But real quick, why don't you give anybody that's listening and wants to find you and follow you or buy some art from you, can you give us your contact information that's best to do that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, Instagram, I have a website, which is www.mikepennekamp.com. It's more of like kind of a boring artist website. They're all cookie cutter and they look the same, and it lacks real engagement. So it's something I want to work on maybe this year as a goal. But I do most of my, I'm more of a presence on Instagram than anywhere else. My Instagram handle is @MikeFaceKilla, all one word. Killa is spelled Killah, like Ghostface Killa, as we talked about. And then I'm still trying to get the official Metaluna Press Instagram kind of off the ground and running in a direction. So that's Metaluna_press. Metaluna is spelled METALUNA.
Cool.
Alex will put a graphic up there for you too.
Yeah,
Little,
put it up on the screen.
yeah, he'll put a little
on
on the video though. But you know, not so we've got people listening though that aren't watching on YouTube, so it's good that you spelled it out. So nice work. And then in your social media too, you do have like a link to get to the Metaluna website as well, potentially, right? I know I've gotten to there.
Yeah,
Okay.
both Instagram accounts have a link to the Metaluna Press Big Cartel site, which is simple, but it's something, you know. The idea is you go to the Instagram page, you see everything, you're like, oh, this is neat, and then you just have to go to this other platform to have it in your home. You know,
I've done it. Yeah, so I've done it. It was easy to pay. I've got two or three items from Mike. So support Mike Facekilla, Mike Pennekamp, MetalunaPress.com.
I wholeheartedly endorse that.
Yeah, and hey, check out our YouTube of this session here talking with Mike, because Mike's got some killer pink hair going. It's awesome.
Yeah, man.
It's awesome. And then we're gonna have Mike's, as he mentioned, Mike's partner Lauren on here as well. We'll get with you, Mike, to set that up. But
sure, yeah.
want to give a quick plug there. We'll have made by Lauren B. She's gonna be. Yeah.
I believe so. That's what she's got. And Lauren is a pretty incredible workhorse. She's lived her entire life not making any money unless she sells something that she has created, and so
Cool.
she's gonna be pretty insightful. I anticipate.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, yeah, thanks again, Mike. It's been awesome to meet you and talk to you today. And yeah, I look forward to getting some of my own Ghostface Killa, Mike Face Killa artwork as well on my wall. I got a brand new wall I built back here in my workshop.
It's beautiful.
So I need to decorate it. So yeah, I think that'd be a good spot for a print. I'll have a look and get something. But yeah, thanks a lot, man. And I'll let Wayne wrap it up.
Yeah, buddy. It was a pleasure talking, man. Thanks for taking time to talk with us. I learned a little bit from you, and which is every time you talk to somebody, it's a good thing to take away, right? Sponge it all up. So you've been inspirational for me. You helped me with some of my screen printing whenever I started out that process. So I appreciate that and your support and being there to answer questions and help me out where you could. So I appreciate that.
Well, yeah, you're welcome. I mean, it's not like, dude, not a big thing. If anybody has any questions about anything that I can help with, especially if they're creative, right? Like rising tide, raises all ships. The more people that appreciate creatives and creative endeavors, the better all of us will do.
All right. Well, that's it. That's it for episode. Yeah, that's it for episode 9. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Great job, Mike.